Hi, welcome to Halifax Real Estate with Brenda K. This is the channel we talk about everything and anything to do with your real estate. Today, a broker. What are they? What do they do? What can they do for you? Don't go away. We'll be right back with Leanne Myles from Clinton Wilkins Mortgage Team. Thanks for joining us today. Like I said, we've got Leanne Myles. Leanne, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day.
And no problem. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to tell our viewers out there what a mortgage broker is, what it's all about. So first of all, tell us who you work for.
So I'm with Centum Home Lenders, and more specifically the Clinton Wilkins Mortgage Team. We're a boutique firm. Our goal this year is to do $100 million in mortgages. There's three of us brokers there, and we've actually just added a fourth.
Yeah.
Very well working office, very well process driven, and we aim to please.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes.
And of course we've all seen Clinton's billboards. I love them.
Yes. Yeah, he's definitely all over town, and the branding, and we're all using the same branding in our social media.
Yeah.
You may see billboards with us later on in the year.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit, Leanne, what is a broker, like compared to going to the bank? What is a broker?
A broker is somebody who works for a client and not specifically a financial institution. When you work for a bank, you're mandated to sell their products. So if a client walks into your branch, you're actually selling what you have. You can try and make it fit. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. People will go into banks and be declined and think that, oh, I can't get a mortgage. With brokers, we have over 40 lenders that we work with, and each of those lenders has niche products, or they have a certain way that they look at clients that's different from the way a bank looks at a client. For example, if you go into a regular bank and maybe part of your income is a child tax, most banks won't look at a child tax as a regular income.
Yeah.
We can look at that. We've got a few lenders that will look at that. Should you base your whole mortgage or one person's income on child tax? Probably not. But if we need something to get you over the hump, we can most certainly go down that road.
Yeah.
And we have lenders with best rates that do that.
Yeah.
So that's just one example.
And like you said, just to get you over the hump. It's not, ever a case of, because I'm sure there are times where you have to say as a broker, this doesn't work for you financially right now. Let's build a plan. As I know we've done it in the past together, and say, why don't you come back to us in 8 months?
Exactly. I was joking with Clinton the other day, and I always said that, with us, everybody gets approved. And it may not be today, but with a good plan, it can be 6 months.
Right.
It can be 10 months from now.
That's a really good way to put it.
It is. And it might be no today, but it can be yes in 6 months or 9 months of doing the right thing. But you can't really know where you sit unless you've sat in front of us and we get a real strong picture of what you look like today and how we have to build you.
That's right.
Yes.
And you need a plan to do that, and you need to make that plan with somebody in your position that says this is where this needs to be. Like, you've got credit. You and I often see come up now, old cell phone bills biting young buyers in the bum that they didn't even realize. Then you can coach them and say, this is what you do.
Exactly. And there was a news article this week. A woman had used her credit card or a line of credit. I didn't read the full story, but she was really upset that she's maintained a really high credit score, and her credit took, an 87-point decline. And what people are not realizing is that the way a credit score is being calculated today is different. And because of that difference, you can walk into a bank and the bank will say, sorry, your credit score isn't high enough. Whereas we can look at that and say, do you know what? If you paid this credit card from $5,000 down to $3,750 or down to $2,500, we can get your credit updated, and we can help you increase your score to get you over that minimum requirement.
Yeah. So is it? You just said that the credit scores changed a little bit. Like
yes,
in what way?
Well, now mortgages are reported on the credit bureau.
They weren't before?
They were not reported before.
I did not know that.
Okay. Mortgages were not reported until a few years ago. If you've had a late on your mortgage, that's a lot. It's a really hard thing for a lender to get over. Cell phone bills. Cell phone bills came onto the credit bureau, I think, about 3 years ago, and they went back 2 years. So if you've ever had a cell phone bill where you went over on data, maybe it was your child, or maybe there was a phone left running, and you dealt with the company to get a credit, Well, during that period of you getting that credit back from the company, if you didn't pay that bill in full, it looks like you were late on your cell phone bill.
Right. And you're sitting there thinking, oh, they're going to give me credit. I'll pay it when I get the credit. Okay.
Exactly. So there's been challenges like that. Cell phones are just part and parcel. People are paying as much on cell phones sometimes as they are on cars.
Yeah.
So now they're being reported.
Student loans?
Student loans are fully reported. And car loans, all of that stuff is all being reported today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us, with being a broker, you've got some different rules.
Yes. So being a broker, I know with Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance, which I believe does end March 31st, Nova Scotia government is offering down payment assistance to people under a certain income bracket. So if you make less than $75,000 a year, the Nova Scotia government will lend you money interest-free for 10 years. There are some banks that won't take that as a down payment. As well, we have some professionals. So as an example, doctors or dentists or teachers or people like that who have accumulated a lot of student loan debt, who maybe have not been able to save, but they've got a bit of room on their student line that they can use as a down payment.
Okay.
We have lenders that we just disclose that up front, and the lender's okay with that because the person's income can handle the additional debt. We just tell them up front. Most banks today don't like to see somebody borrow, quote unquote, a down payment.
A lot of it with that, when you were saying about the student loan and what they're taking, I know that they allow a lot more credit, say, to dentistry students or med students, you know,
Yes.
Nurses, things like that.
Yeah, so we see often dentists, doctors coming in with about $250,000 in a line of credit. Some of those people have that paid off, some don't.
Yeah.
We have lenders and banks, I mean, we use banks as well, that will require 3% of that line of credit as a payment. So that could be upwards of $8,000 a month, which
Wow.
is fine if you're making $400,000 a year in a salary, but most doctors,
You don't start there.
you don't start there, and not only that too, but they're often self-employed.
Yeah.
It takes 2 years to build up an income. We do have lenders that will look at that line of credit with a 1% repayment. Most professionals are maintaining, and it requires excellent credit. It requires, you know, your income to be solid, but we do have lenders that will allow us to use 1% on a student debt.
Yeah, and we're not saying the banks on that won't.
No,
because
absolutely.
I know on banks will look at that too. So I don't want to mislead anybody there.
No, not at all.
But you also have different lenders too, don't you? Like you have trust companies, and you have. Tell us about the different lenders.
We
that you work
have,
with.
so we have banks.
You have banks that you
we
go
also
to.
have monoline lenders, and then we also have alternative lenders.
So what's a monoline lender?
A monoline lender is a lender like First National. Okay, they only do mortgages. They don't do any other type of transaction. They lend money through investors. When you go to borrow money from one of the big five, they're lending out deposits.
Right.
First National is lending money through investors.
Investors.
So it's a completely different way of lending money. We also have trust companies and or alternative lenders. They do take money on deposit, and they lend their own money, but they also take a more common sense approach. Today, we're using, 3% of a line of credit. Maybe if they want the best rate, so we're using that $8,000 payment. Whereas an alternative lender, they'll premium the rate, but they'll take the actual payment on the lines of credit and the debt and that kind of thing.
Right.
To make it more common sense.
Yeah. So a little bit more unforgiving on some of the, we all carry debt.
Everybody carries debt,
Yeah.
and when you're a student and or a doctor or a professional, the other side of it is
Or a realtor.
Realtor.
I'm kidding.
Well, it's a self-employed piece. So if your
yeah.
accountant is really great, and we've all have
Yeah.
great accountants,
Yeah.
and you're not really making a lot of money personally, but your business is,
Yeah.
we can use business bank statements.
Yeah. And then that's the other thing too, is some people out there, like say a realtor or any type of commission salesperson, commission-based job where 100% of what you make is commission. There's some alternatives
There's
that you can offer.
alternatives. Absolutely. We see it all the time. A person is making $100,000 in commission, but maybe they're only making $40,000 personally.
Right.
With these alternative lenders, proof of down payment, or not proof of down payment, proof of income being deposited into their bank account, maybe their commission roll up to the year to date, it does require a higher down payment in order to access those lenders. So cash is king, as they say.
Yeah.
but they will look at your income completely differently than a CMHC insured mortgage does.
Yeah. And something, you have a product, and you and I have talked about it before, the Manu One, so that like if you were commission and you knew like in the winter months, you know, you could just pay the interest.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Manulife One has recently come to the broker channel. There's a few of us brokers that support it. I'm a former employee of Manulife, so I understand the product inside and out. So I always
That's where we met 10 years ago.
Yes, it is. It's something that I educate my clients on. It's not for every client, but for the person who has an income that's up and down, and especially if you have big highs and big lows, being able to float an interest payment or being able to have that interest payment come out of the available credit can be critical in the success and or the mental health of a person throughout their ups and downs in their commission.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the interest rate on that? Is it substantially higher than a traditional mortgage?
It is a little bit higher. The rate is higher. So there's 65% of the mortgage that is open or can be open, and that is at prime plus a half. That's simple interest. Not compounded.
Right.
15% of the mortgage is also locked into an amortizing loan because the government didn't want people taking on this type of product and not paying it down.
Right.
And that is an amortizing compounded interest loan within the Manulife One.
So you, because that would be, you wouldn't want people only just paying the interest and
never paying down their debt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they go to sell the house. The other thing with you as a broker is you only do mortgages.
I only do mortgages. We are very good at them. We have Clinton who works with purchases mostly. We have Alex that works on the alternative side. We've got me that I understand the line of credit products. I do alternate and I do private. We only do mortgages and we learn the rules so that we can help the people, not the lenders.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the word private. What do you mean by that?
Private lending, like, or investing, or what do you mean?
Private lending, like, can you actually get, because you kind of you hear about that here and there, but so someone's got, you know, they're a high risk.
Yes.
And that's where the private lenders would come in. The interest rate would be higher, and they would say, okay, we'll take on.
Yeah. So private lending, we have several here in Atlantic Canada. They will help clients who maybe have had credit struggles. They will help clients who have maybe not had their income, quite for long enough. Maybe they don't qualify at a regular bank. They will help you build a house. They are a market that I utilize heavily. We can help people, and the key with a private mortgage is equity and exit. So do you have equity in your home that we can tap into? If you do, we can use that to give you a hand up instead of a handout. Yeah. As an example, I had a young gentleman in the Valley. His credit was maxed out. It wasn't no late payments, but he was over limit on 4 credit facilities. We used a private lender in November. We borrowed the money privately. We paid off all of his credit. He came back 2 weeks ago and his credit went from 580 to 750 in 4 months.
So it's not saying, because that's the one thing I know about you, is if it's not good for the client, that you would see them in any financial trouble down the road, you will not you will not lend the money. So, and sometimes, like you said, the big institutions, their rules are, these are their rules, like the 10 Commandments. They're never going to change.
They have a box.
That's right. They have a box.
They have a box, and they won't go outside their box, and which is fine because that's their guideline. It's beautiful that we have so many boxes that we can look into, and we can fit the client where it best suits them, and not best for the institution.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some down payment options you were telling me?
Yeah, so with as a broker, we have several different options. We can use the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance, but like I said, that's done as of March 31st. We also can do a flex down, which is a borrowed down payment that we disclose to the lender. We're also linked with the credit unions. Credit unions still have a 0% down. It is a much higher rate mortgage, but they also do a 0 down that we can tap into. Best form of down payment, of course, is if you saved it yourself. 5%. Don't move your money around. We just, people get their down payment and maybe they've got it over 3 bank accounts and they move it into one. We now need 90 days on all 3 plus 1.
Oh, okay.
So if you get
that's a really good tip.
It's people will move their money because they want to collect it in one place. They don't want to have access to it. But when they do that, we now need to see 90 days on that account. And then if you've had a transaction over 10,000, we're required to investigate that to find out where those funds came from. So
Yeah.
it can get a little hairy.
So why do you think they did the 90-day thing? Why do they want? What difference does it make if the money was in these 3 banks and then 30 days ago you put it all in this bank?
Because we need to know the source of funds due to fraud, due to the things that are happening in the Canadian banking system. It is to prevent fraud. We need to know where the money is coming from.
So if you're moving from bank to bank, that's easy to trace.
Yes, it is. It's there.
I mean, you can't question it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but if it's come from like your parents, this, that, maybe
we need to have a letter. If your parents wrote you a check for $15,000, we need a letter stating that they gave you that money on that same day, and it's a gift, and that it's not repayable.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? We learned a lot from you here, Leanne. I'm thankful that you came out and helped us here today.
No problem.
I know one of the first things I do as a realtor is I sit down with you and say, let's talk about your finances. Leanne will sit down. You build a plan that works for you. Would you come back and talk to us again?
Absolutely.
All
Anytime.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. And we'll see you on the next episode of Real Estate with Brenda K. Cheers.
You actually have like a production company. Oh yeah, that's what you say.
BK Productions.
That's amazing.